Clone games. I'm sure most people are aware of the concept. Some clones are shameless, while others try and improve on what they are copying. Clone games are important to the video game industry, with some of the best franchises we know and love starting out as clones of other games. Resident Evil and Silent Hill both built off of what Alone in the Dark started, creating the survival horror genre. Grand Theft Auto and Saints Row having a friendly rivalry. Dark Souls has spawned its own genre, known as Soulsborne, with games like Nioh, The Surge, Ashen, Immortal Unchained, just to name a few. But have you ever wondered why there are seemingly no clones of Bethesda's Elder Scrolls series? You would think that an IP that has existed since the 90s and continuously sells in the millions would have at least some clones. Some will say there are no Elder Scrolls clones because they cost too much to produce. Yet games that have as high or even higher budgets than most Elder Scrolls games exist. Skyrim had a budget of $100 million, but then again, so did Max Payne 3. Destiny 1 had a $140 million budget. Red Dead Redemption 2 had an estimated $240 million. So money is not the issue here. And when you try and research Elder Scrolls clones on Google, none of the answers it gives or any other website gives are anywhere near clones. They usually list games like The Witcher 3, Dragon's Dogma, and Dragon Age Inquisition. You even have some websites just listing other Bethesda games like Fallout 3 or older Elder Scrolls. Someone might think that no other developer has dared to make their own version of the Elder Scrolls games. But I have done the work these websites didn't. I actually looked around the internet and found games that I believe can be called Elder Scrolls clones. Or at least heavily inspired by Elder Scrolls. So here's my criteria for what is an Elder Scrolls clone. Since most gaming websites just list any fantasy RPG game as an Elder Scrolls clone for some reason, I have set some criteria for what I believe constitutes an Elder Scrolls game. Number 1. First-person combat. Nearly every Elder Scrolls game is played in first person. Yes, I know you can go into third person in most of them, and Elder Scrolls Redguard, I believe, is entirely third person, but 99% of the time, it's first person gameplay. Bonus points to any game that lets you play in both first and third person. Now, this immediately excludes games like the Witcher series, Dragon's Dogma, Gothic, and even another RPG made by former Bethesda employees, Kingdoms of Amalur or Reckoning. 2. It does not necessarily have to be open world. A few Elder Scrolls games have been just straight dungeon crawlers without a true open world. 3. No turn-based games. Must have real-time combat. Elder Scrolls is real-time. 4. A fantasy world of some kind. This excludes Kingdom Come Deliverance, as I know some people were going to mention that game. Kingdom Come Deliverance is more of a historical medieval simulator, rather than a RPG fantasy game. And I would not put it in as an Elder Scrolls clone. Going by this criteria, if I miss any games that you would put on a list of Elder Scrolls clones, feel free to list them below. Maybe I'll make a part 2 if there are enough of them out there. We'll start off with the Tower series, a series most of you probably never heard of. The Tower series is actually older than Elder Scrolls, only by a year, but that is still older. You're probably going to say, how can an older game be a clone of something that came after it? Because there are 2 games in the Tower series. Towers 1, Lord Bantiff's Deceit, and Towers 2, Plight of the Stargazer. The second one is the main focus, as that is the Elder Scrolls clone, but we'll talk about the first one a bit too. The first game in the series was released on the Atari ST line of computers in 1993. But for some reason, it was then ported to the Game Boy Color in 2000. Yeah, you heard me, this 1993 Atari computer game got ported to the Game Boy Color. Well, Towers 1 is okay, it's nothing amazing, especially on the Game Boy Color. If you want to play this game, don't play it on an actual Game Boy Color. The Game Boy Color version is the easiest to acquire, but find some other way to play it. I'm personally playing it on a Hyperkin Retron Square, so I can hook it up to a nice big screen, and not have to play it on the tiny Game Boy screen. Now, Towers 2 Plight of the Stargazer came out in 1995 on the Atari Falcon computer, and in 1996 on the Atari Jaguar. That's only a year before Atari abandoned all support for the Jaguar, as it was a failing console. There's also apparently a Windows version of this game, however, I've never seen it, and I think that it's not very common compared to the Jaguar version, which seems to be the most common of all the versions. Towers 1 and Towers 2 are different in terms of gameplay. Towers 1 is a grid-based style dungeon crawler. While most grid-based games are turn-based, the combat in Towers 1 is actually real-time. In fact, most of the game is real-time. There's no pausing, really. You pick from 4 different characters: Merton, Tassler, Andros, and M1 Grand. Towers 1 you can eat, sleep, drink, and even read scrolls you find on the ground. It also has this really interesting system where you can combine words of power to form spells. You can also throw items in your inventory, like you can just fling cheese down hallways for no reason. Speaking of the inventory, it's extremely clunky to use. At least on the GBA version it is. A mouse cursor on a GBA game has to be the slowest and clunkiest inventory system there is. Now, I do not own the second game, Towers 2 Plight of the Stargazer. I have played it before, so most of my knowledge about the game will be off memory and watching some videos on YouTube. Towers 2 is a straight improvement on Towers 1. It ditches the grid-based movement for a free movement system, and now there are friendly NPCs you can talk to as well. It keeps a lot of the systems from Towers 1, like the eating, drinking, sleeping, and even the words of power to form spells are back. It's very similar to Elder Scrolls Arena and probably Battlespire, and I think if you are familiar with Elder Scrolls Arena or Battlespire, you'll be right at home playing the Towers game. Except I'm told that Towers 2 gets very difficult and is a very confusing game. Now I give Towers 1 a 6.5 out of 10 and Towers 2 a 7.5 out of 10. JV Enterprises, the developer, and Telegames, the publisher, are still around today. If you're employed at either of these companies, or if someone wants to contact them, get them to port the Tower series to modern systems, put them out as a bundle. More people need to be able to play these old games that are locked behind harder and harder to acquire systems like the Jaguar, that are only going up in price as collectors get more and more interested in them. The next game is called Frontiers, made by AAD Productions. I do not own this game, just warning you now. It is $15 on Steam and has mostly negative reviews. This game had a Kickstarter back in 2013 where it earned $157,000 with 4,570 some backers. The trailer is pretty promising, and the Kickstarter promises a lot as well, and it constantly mentions Daggerfall as the influence. So here we have a Daggerfall clone. The developer put up multiple streams of him working on the game and eventually just kind of stopped. The last update was in January of 2020, and the dev wrote this short paragraph. A new build, the final build, has been pushed to Steam. The game has exited early access. It's not perfect, not even close to what we hoped for, but it's done. Janky, ugly, compromised, buggy, missing tons of promised features, and done. You can install it, launch it, play it from start to finish. I've done so dozens of times and never will again. Frontiers seems like it was a passion project from this developer, and as time went on, he kinda underestimated how hard it would be to make a game like this, and eventually just put out one last update and quit. It's still on Steam at the time of making this video. I don't really recommend it, but if you want to go and try it, go right ahead. I'll have it linked down below. And on that note, we head to our third game, and it's something not funded by Kickstarter. Ravensword Shadowlands. This game is an Oblivion clone, or just heavily based on Oblivion. It's like if you took a group of Oblivion's most mediocre modders and gave them some money and a lot of drugs to make Oblivion 2, Elven Boogaloo. This game came out in 2013 and was released on PC, mobile, and the Ouya, of all things. Yep, that's the same year as Skyrim. The game was even re-released this year on Xbox One, PS4, and Nintendo Switch. Ravensword Shadowlands is made by Crescent Moon Games and has been the second game in the Ravensword series. The first game being Ravensword the Fallen King, which was only released on iOS back in 2009. Ravensword Shadowlands is, like I said, an Oblivion clone. It's not great, but it's not terrible, at least in comparison to some other games on this list. There's very little in the way of character customization. It's more than nothing, but it might as well be nothing. The story is kind of generic. It's not terrible, but it's nothing amazing. You start out in this huge battle against dark elves, and some weird magic stuff happens during the battle. You're the only one to survive. You wake up with some weird lady staring at you, and you talk to her, and I think her husband run a guild that does good deeds, and then they send you on your way. You eventually have to get inside this wizard tower. The wizard, instead of solving his problems, locked himself in his tower and just complains. You go and find his former apprentice who has somehow shrunk himself inside of a bottle. Then you get into the tower. You find out from him you need the Raven Stones to make the Raven Sword in order to defeat the big bad guy. On your journey, you meet some interesting characters like this guy who sells basically garbage. Though he does sell a very interesting weapon that is a flaming rat on a stick. I thought this was funny. The enemy variety is pretty interesting. You encounter goblins, boars, bandits, trolls, and dinosaurs. The game's enemy design is all over the place, which is kind of amusing to me because seeing an enemy type that is entirely unexpected kept me on my toes while playing. Some of the game's environments are actually not too bad looking, while others are kinda blandish. The ranged weapons are very good. I would say if you are going to play this, don't even bother with melee half the time. Just use bows and magic. The bow has infinite arrows, and enemies seem to have to stop in order to attack, so backpedal Fallout style while using a ranged weapon, honestly. Ravensword Shadowlands is also very glitchy, not unlike an Elder Scrolls game. The dialogue is also very weird, not unlike an Elder Scrolls game. Unlike an Elder Scrolls game, some sentences are voiced, but not others. Kind of like some of the mediocre quest mods you get early on in a Fallout or Elder Scrolls game's lifetime, before proper voice acting is added. Oh yeah, here's something I found that was entirely hilarious to me. You can just max out your sneak at any time just by spamming the sneak button. There's a dedicated sneak button, and you just spam it constantly, and your sneak will just keep going up. Now you can play Ravensword Shadowlands in first and third person, just like in Elder Scrolls games, so that's an extra point to it there. Overall, I give Ravensword Shadowlands a 6 out of 10. It's available on Steam, so I'll link to it as well. Here's something else that's interesting. There is another Ravensword game being made, Ravensword Undaunted, which is a hack and slash spin-off game set in the Ravensword universe made by Tramatra Interactive. The game is based on Hexen, and it's not too bad looking. Maybe they can make the Ravensword universe into something bigger. The next game on the list is a bit of a stretch, but I felt to include it. This is Savage Lands. For some of you, that may ring a bell and go, hey, I heard of that before, years ago. Yeah, Savage Lands has been in early access since 2015. It came out during the initial wave of all the survival games like DayZ, The Warzy, Nether. You know what I mean. Savage Lands was initially pretty popular because it had something going for it compared to the other survival games of the time. It was made by a studio that people knew. That studio was Signal Studios. And if you don't know them, they make the excellent series of tower defense games, Toy Soldiers. Savage Lands has had a troubled development history. See, Savage Lands was the idea of one or maybe two of the devs at Signal Studios who eventually had a falling out with them and left. Development on the game ceased, and eventually that dev who left made his own company, Last Bastion Studios, and has regained the rights to his game, and it's now in full development again. Savage Lands is a medieval fantasy survival game. I know what you're saying. How is this survival game an Elder Scrolls clone? Well, Skyrim has a survival mode available in the Creation Club, so there's that. Alright, Savage Lands isn't really a Elder Scrolls clone. I kinda just needed more games for this list. But Savage Lands does fit some of the prerequisites I set to be an Elder Scrolls clone. It has a fantasy setting, it's first person, real-time combat, I mean it's got tons of fantasy monsters. My only big problem with it, and this is a problem I have with basically every survival game, I really don't like the one life system of these games. I don't like dying, dropping everything, and basically having to start over. Something about that I've just never liked. Right now, I give Savage Lands a 5 out of 10. Maybe in the future it will get better, as it's being worked on, but as of right now, 5 out of 10 game. If you want to help support its development, I'll have it linked down below. It is on Steam. And now we come to the last game on the list, and this is the game that actually inspired me to make this video. The game is Isles of Adalar. Adalar? Adalar? I'm gonna say $1, because that sounds funny to me. While Ravensword is based on Oblivion, Islands of Adalar is very much based on Morrowind. Isles of Adalar entered early access in October of 2020. They say in one of their dev blogs that their game is in a very rough shape right now, and you should only purchase it if you wish to help fund the game. So, unlike previous games, this does feature a character creator with multiple races. You can be a human, a Twi'lek from Star Wars, a furry, and returned a monkey. That's pretty good so far. The game is being made by Plight Software, and if anyone at Plight Software happens to see this video, can you please add a dinosaur-based race? I feel that there's not enough dinosaur-based races in video games, and you can do a lot with a dinosaur-based race. Now, like I said, there really isn't too much of a game right now. You can fight people and loot things, and there's also some weird enemies to fight that are very Morrowind inspired. There's also this really cool level editor. There's also mod support for this game. In fact, this is the only game with mod support on this list. I hope Plight Software is able to fully fund this game, because I'd really like to see where it goes. I think it's very interesting. Well, those are all the Elder Scrolls clones I have found at this time. If you know any more, list them down below in the comment section. With the next Elder Scrolls game being who knows how many years away, this can really give smaller studios a chance to shine, much like what happened with Dark Souls and its clones. Well, that's the end of the video. Like, subscribe, do all that stuff. Hit the bell, I don't know. So many different things down there these days. Bye.